Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, I would like to thank all of y'all for taking the time to join me today. I am a representative from the Human Rights Watch, and I've been investigating alleged abuses of the constitutional guaranteed rights in the country of Iran. As fellow Americans, we may take things for granted. We are allowed to freely speak and express our opinions. Unlike Iran, we are allowed to be tried fairly. People in Iran are being sentenced in jail before they even get due process. The Human Rights Watch has been observing and investigating many cases in Iran. I am here today to prove to you that Iran is denying the rights it has promised to all the people living here. Our first case where Iranian rights were abused was not too far back, September 20th, 2012 to be exact. A woman of Canadian residence is being processed and deported back to Iran for adultery under Sharia law. This woman was a refugee. Her name was Fatima Tazarovidin, and she was living in Canada. Yet she's still being deported back to Iran. Judges are being allowed to sign her sentence standing under the Sharia law. It has been said by her personally that she has been accused and wasn't given a fair trial. She was giving a lawyer here in Canada, but they don't have as much right to give her a trial. Her husband was the one who was accusing her of adultery in the beginning. She was unfairly accused and wasn't allowed to give her side of the story. New evidence has been given to prove her innocence, but therefore since she hasn't been given a fair due process, she's not allowed to give this evidence. Not only is this discrimination to women, but also unfair to leave a child motherless for a false accusation. Iran has reportedly been prohibited temporarily any stoning since 2012, but she is still going to face stoning, and that will leave her for losing her life. Injustice. I'm going to say this is what this case is. Voices not heard, people's lives taken unfairly. We mustn't allow this, not anymore. Another issue was back in January 31st, 2011, when the use of confessions and denial of legal representation for many individuals was lacked. They were unfairly told to confess things that weren't true. They considered this lack of due process in trials in Iran. They didn't have enough information to put someone through a trial, so they automatically punished them under Sharia law. And this is very unfair. What if you wrote or said something that didn't make sense? Do you think it's worth being killed over it? When people don't make sense here in the U.S., so we just use sense in their statements or pleas. They're stoned because of it. They died without being proven guilty, all because they didn't make sense. Now, is this the way to treat someone? Any person guilty, any person at all should, for that matter. No, it isn't. They are living, breathing people as well as you and I. They shouldn't be treated different. They shouldn't be treated any different than us. The last case I would like to speak to you is about a U.S. military veteran. He was detained for being accused of being a CIA agent. He was given the death penalty right on the spot, but then his penalty was pushed back. This man has no contact with his family or friends in any way. The court is discussing among themselves on giving him an actual trial before they kill him, but this choice has not been made yet. What if you were going to die? What if you weren't able to talk to your family or friends? This court is discussing among themselves on giving him an actual trial before they kill him, but this choice has not been made yet. What if you had no contact to tell your mother or father or someone what was happening? What if you couldn't tell them goodbye just before you were being trialed? This man may die without even having a fair trial. He doesn't even get to make a statement, unlike most people in the former issue. They didn't have the time to make a mistake because they had no time to begin. Now, is that fair? Would you want to die without even being able to explain what has happened? No, you wouldn't. So why is it okay for this man to? So in these past few examples, I hope you realize that we have it much easier than most people right now. Think back on what we have recently discussed. The woman being stoned under false accusation and how her child will be left with no one after she dies. How so? Many people were being killed after saying false statements, not having a chance to fix them later. How that veteran may be facing death charges and he won't even be able to tell his parents and families goodbye. all the family and friends that these people are going to leave behind because of small mistakes. Living with fear and not being able to speak out. Imagine living in a country in which you could possibly face death just because of an unfair due process. These people are living in fear of death, not being able to speak out freely and not being treated right. Just because of Sharia law. This has to change. We cannot wait no more. People are dying, and not because of national reasons, but because of man himself.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to be here to be speaking to all of you. Now imagine having your head cut off from your body from basic human rights, such as the freedom of speech. In my country, the United States, we take that right for granted and say that we are free to express ourselves however we feel like it. I'm a representative from Human Rights Watch, and I have been investigating alleged abuses of constitutionally guaranteed rights in the country of Saudi Arabia. I'm here today to make you aware that Saudi Arabia is denying its people both constitutional and human rights that every person, no matter skin color, religion, or ethnicity, should be deprived of. Also, I'll share with you the evidence of what this country is depriving its people of. Let's start with the case of 56-year-old Maqlif al-Shamari, a Saudi Arabian man who was put in prison for contradicting Sharia. According to Al-Karama Foundation, while in prison, this man was brutally beat by guards and sent to the hospital. In the hospital, an officer tried to pour a toxic disinfectant down his throat. Luckily, the man survived the attack, but when accused, the officer alleged that the man had tried to commit suicide. This proves how cruel the government of the country can be against its people who are against the torture in Saudi Arabia. Next, we consider what happened to Raif Badawi because of his website posting. According to News Collective, Saudi Arabian officials accused that the website infringes on religious beliefs. Now, Badawi's 5 postings have given him 5 years of prison and a fine of $800,000. It is simply outrageous for the government of a country to ask someone for $800,000 and put him in prison for 5 years. This shows how exaggerated the country is when someone says something about their religion that isn't even mean or harmful. Finally, I will tell you what happened to Ali Hussein Sabat, a TV show presenter. The Saudi Arabian religious police officer charged this man with sorcery and sentenced him to death. According to CNN, the news authorities say that Sabat was practicing black magic on his show, but all he really did was predict the future and gave his audience advice. The man is now depressed because the government said he deserves to be executed for practicing sorcery. He has 5 children and a wife, who are all worried about his health and well-being. This case shows that Saudi Arabia is way too harsh when judging this type of cases, because the presenter was not even talking against the religion or government of Saudi Arabia. A man does not deserve to have his head removed for giving out advice to his audience. Let's summarize all this, basically saying that Saudi Arabia is denying its people both constitutional and basic human rights. One man was brutally beat by prison guards for being opposed to torture. Another man sent to prison and asked for an insane fine for 5 postings that supposedly infringe religious values. But perhaps the worst of all was a television presenter sentenced to death for giving his audience some helpful advice. I encourage you to support the call for economic sanctions against Saudi Arabia. Let's all contribute to help these innocent people from being massacred. Thank you.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention. I'd like to bring to your consideration the country of Jordan and their abuse of their constitutional rights. Their leaders need to be brought to justice for the misuse of these rights. There are 3 accounts towards these rights. One is abuse of domestic workers in Jordan. These innocent people were abused by their employers to return home. Jordan is abusing workers for escaping abusive households by piling on daily fines to prevent them from returning home until fines are paid off. This is outrageous. Workers should be able to leave when hours are up in the factory. Another example is a publisher charged in a state security court. A military prosecutor in Jordan is charging a journalist and a publisher of a news website because of the apparent violation of free speech rights. They're being charged because of the apparent violation of free speech rights. They're being charged with subverting the system of government. This is the 5th case this year that peaceful critics have been charged for speech offenses. Here is a violation of expression that the government attacked its people. Lastly, nearly 2,000 Jordanians were walking from a local mosque to the city hall when police attacked the protesters walking and beat them with wooden clubs and bats. This is inhumane. Jordan people should not have to deal with this cruelty from authorities. This behavior is not tolerated in the United States of America or any other country in the United States, so it should not be allowed in Jordan. There are only a few displays of inappropriate behaviors. There are many more out there that need to be protested against, and we need to help protect our fellow people. Thank you once again for your patience and consideration.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates, and ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that it is an honor to speak to you this afternoon. I have come to address that the United Arab Emirates is not keeping the right promises to its own citizens. I am a representative from Human Rights Watch, and I have been investigating alleged abuses of constitutionally granted rights in the country of the United Arab Emirates. I am here to convince you that the United Arab Emirates is denying its rights and freedom of assembly. This right is protected in their constitution, and I sincerely hope that by showing you how the UAE is abusing the right, it will convince you to take action in a form of economic sanction against this country. On the 29th of July of this year, based on my sources from MSN.BC, or MSN, the United Arab Emirates abused the right of assembly at arresting Sheikh Sultan al-Qasami. He is a cousin of the ruler of an emirate, Ras al-Kalaman. Ever since the Emirates have been detaining anyone involved in protest of government that could lead into major riots, the right to peacefully assemble was abused because of these minor riots didn't cause any harm to any official or building of the government, nor to any fellow citizen. The detaining of a relative in royal blood is critical, but what is also important is detaining of a peaceful group leader. Since the 1st of April this year, evidence procedures from Reuters.com state that the UAE has been detaining individuals for over 4 months. UAE officials claim that individuals are part of a former Islamic reform group, the Islamist Reformist Group, have been part of many protests against the government, but they were known to be peaceful and respectful. According to their constitution, officials had no right to detain the group for these reasons. This is minor compared to my first piece of evidence, but what is most shocking is that this cannot compare with the significance of my last evidence. On August the 1st of this current year, FoxNews.com stated 40 activists have been arrested since March. The activists were a part of peaceful protests, and one of the members is Herod Roquid, a well-known figure for the founding of ISLA. ISLA is an organization whose mission is to pilot and guide youth to be more faithful and more lifestyle. His detaining is a part of recent crackdown in assemblies. The crackdown was due to the revolutions, uprisings, and other major conflicts in the Middle East. What is more important to know is the possibility of the 40 detainees being scheduled for execution or any other form of cruel punishment. The United Arab Emirates is not under Sharia law, but it is under state regulation, so the possibility of cruel punishment is not far-fetched. I hope that my evidence from reliable sources comes to support my argument that action needs to be taken in order to reduce the abuses dealt by this nation. The crucial right of assembly is being abused by arresting individuals for peaceful protest and possibility of cruel punishment. What my goal is for you, my fellow delegates, and me is to take action. I encourage the UN to support the call for economic sanctions against the United Arab Emirates. I appreciate your time for listening. It has been an honor talking in front of such a powerful and well-respectful assembly. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Catherine Long, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to these important thoughts. In America, we are given our rights and they are protected, but other countries cannot say the same. Everyday countries are breaking their rights and not keeping their word to their people. I'm a representative from Human Rights Watch. and I have been investigating alleged abuses of constitutionally guaranteed rights in the country of Lebanon. I am here today to show you my goal of stopping Lebanon's broken promises to its people. Let's start with a case depicting Lebanon's abuse of the right of discrimination. This article is about the abuse of migrant domestic workers. Migrant domestic workers face exploitation and abuse by employers, including excessive hours of work, non-payment of wages, and restrictions in their liberty. Many women migrants suffer physical and sexual abuse by their employers. At least 45 migrant workers died in 2008, a majority of whom committed suicide or died while trying to escape. Next is a little less severe article about domestic workers. Here is a story of discrimination involving race and domestic workers also. Counterpunch News reports that racism is a major problem in Lebanon. Many people that have visited resorts have reported that African Americans and Asian domestic workers are not allowed to wear bathing suits or sun themselves. Several beaches and private swimming pools are segregated and off limits to people of color. 50% of Lebanon's beach clubs do not allow migrant workers. 50% of Lebanon's beach clubs do not allow migrant guest workers from Asia and Africa in their swimming pools, and some even physically block the entrance to the resort. This is a major problem, and it is definitely a story of discrimination on someone's sexuality. Start over there. This is a major problem and is definitely discrimination because it's making someone feel less than the rest. Finally, I'm going to tell you a story of discrimination on someone's sexuality. This is possibly one of the worst cases of discrimination. On August 11, 2012, RT News reports that the Lebanese are protesting in Beirut against the examinations of men expected to be homosexual. Same-sex relations in the Arab community are considered a crime and can be punishable for up to a year in jail. This is considered discrimination because it is marking someone as different. In their constitution, it clearly says there will be no discrimination, but yet it still happens. Lebanon may seem like the perfect country, but it is not even close. Several acts of discrimination are reported each day, and they do not do anything about it, even though it is stated that there will be no discrimination in their constitution. Let's all contribute in the act of stopping discrimination laws.